Scotland is going to be a crucial battleground in the UK's general election in May. And earlier I spoke with Jim Murphy, the new leader of Scottish Labour, to hear more about how he plans to turn the embattled party's fortunes around. Thanks very much for making time today. We're looking at the opinion polls and they suggest that Scottish Labour is looking at potential wipeout in Scotland. There's only 3 months to go to the general election. Can you turn it around?
I know we can. Take a lot of work, and you're right, we're behind in the polls. But the polls are there. Look, if you're ahead in the polls, you celebrate them, and if you're behind in the polls, you set out to confound them. My sense of the polls will change, but they'll change relatively late. And it's about that sense of patriotism, confidence, self-belief, and genuinely being the party that says, here's the changes we're going to make. And I think this will be a change election rather than a risk election. I know the Conservative Party will try and turn the Labour Party into a risk, kind of the risk party, but I think the public will see through that. And I think the election will swing on change rather than risk. And I need to make sure that the Scottish Labour Party is a party of change.
You've talked of the Scottish Labour Party's problems as being long-standing and quite broad. What are you focusing on to change about the way the party works in this brief time before the election?
Well, you're right in saying that I've reflected in the recent past the Scottish Labour Party hasn't been strong enough. I'll take my share of that blame, but I hope people will accept we've begun really quickly to make the necessary changes. We changed what's known as Clause 4 of the Scottish Labour Party's constitution, a commitment to a patriotic party and a permanent and powerful Scottish Parliament that says that decisions that affect Scotland alone are made here in Scotland alone. We don't need to consult, we don't need to discuss, we don't need clearance from anyone else anywhere else in the UK Labour Party. We'll make our own decisions on things that affect just Scotland. So it's all of that, but it's more. It's about saying, here's the change that we would make. It's not a sense of don't vote for the other guys just because it'll help David Cameron win. It's about how we'll have a minimum wage of £8 an hour, we'll have a living wage, we'll build more houses, we'll use the money from a mansion tax, which I know if you live in a house over £2 million, not everyone in that situation will enjoy paying a little bit more, but we think it's fair that when we do need more money to meet the continuing demands of the National Health Service, rather than increasing the income tax for the middle classes, introducing a mansion tax, most of which isn't raised in Scotland, of course, but will help fund the NHS in Scotland. That's the sort of thing that I'm determined we do.
You talked about the importance of taking the fight to the Scottish National Party and of approaching the SNP as a party of government rather than a party of opposition. What does that mean in practice?
Well, the peculiar thing about Scotland for a little while has been that the Scottish National Party have both been the incumbents in government and the insurgents against government. And what I've said is that the first thing I was determined to do, and I think we're not yet there, but we're very close to it, is to make the SNP accountable for their own record. Turn them into a government as normal. Not allowing them the luxury of disowning their own mistakes and blaming someone else. And not allowing themselves to be a something must be done type of government when they've got their hands on the levers. I said, pull the lever. If you don't like what's happening, pull that lever and change things. So putting them into government in a way that after 7 long years of government, they should be anyway. So denying them a kind of combination of incumbency and insurgency. I think this will be the least general election, or least general of any general election that I've ever known, because you've got a Scotland story, as yet unwritten, but there's a Scotland story there. There's a UKIP story as to just where are they strong, where are they weak, whose votes are they eating into. There's a micro green story in a couple of cities. There's what happens to the Lib Dems? Do the Lib Dems hold on to the three power bases, the relative power bases, the southwest, parts of the north of England and parts of Scotland, and how are they contaminated by being part of the coalition? So there's all sorts of, I think it's a series of elections on the same islands on the same day which are far from being general. So there'll be, for anyone who's an observer, a dispassionate observer of politics, it'll be a remarkable event to watch, because the cross currents and the collisions of currents across the UK, I think, are unprecedented.